Welcome back to the Global Ledger. I'm Justin. In episode 2, we explored why everything begins with liquidity. Episode 2, we touched on the global dollar system and the network that shapes that liquidity. Now, in episode 3, I want to introduce you to the most important and the least understood participants in modern finance. That's dealers. If liquidity is the oxygen of markets, dealers are the lungs. If the dollar, say, is the operating system, dealers are the processors. Dealers sit right at the intersection: money, markets, funding, valuation, and risk. And yet, almost no one talks about them. So today, we're going to fix that. So I think the first thing we need to ask ourselves is who are the dealers? And so when most people think of the dealers, they picture traders in a room shouting numbers. But the reality is much simpler and also much deeper. The best definition I can come up with, in my own words, would be dealers are balance sheet institutions, and they have jobs to basically make markets, and they stand ready to buy when somebody wants to sell, and sell when somebody wants to buy. So dealers include major banks, broker dealers, swap dealers, FX dealers, primary dealers. We've heard of primary dealers. That's one that's kind of associated with the Federal Reserve, and money shadow bank institution. So they aren't just traders. They are liquidity providers. They use their balance sheet to keep markets functioning. And in that role, the willingness to take the other side is, well, the foundation of market stability. And so when a dealer buys from a seller, they take the asset onto their balance sheet. So what kind of risk does this create? It creates what they call inventory risk. So for an example, if someone sells a treasury to a dealer, the dealer now holds that treasury. If someone buys a derivative, the dealer writes the contract. If someone needs dollars offshore, the dealer provides them with something that's called an FX swap. So dealers don't want, per se, directional bets, and there are different types of dealers, but they're not choosing winners. Their one job is to stay as close to risk neutral as possible. This means hedging, offsetting, and managing their exposures always, continuously. So, and this is really at the heart and where the liquidity conditions show up. So, basic example of funding is cheap. Dealers, they're able to absorb more risk, and liquidity feels abundant, feels present. But if funding is expensive, dealers shrink. Liquidity, well, dries up. So everything traces back to their balance sheet. And so I would say there are 4 key markets in which dealers must constantly hedge their exposure. Number 1 would be the funding markets. So this is what dealers are going to do, that they're going to borrow to finance their position. They're going to use repos, Fed funds, Eurodollars, which we'll get into all that. So I just want to lay the foundation of these different types of markets. Hedging markets, number 2, is a big one. This is how they offset risk. So this is where you see options, futures, swaps, CDs, Very important. And again, we're going to get into all the details of what these things mean, and I'm going to make sure that it's clear and I explain it just as simple as it should be. Number 3, cash markets. So this is where they trade the actual assets. This is stocks, bonds, and commodities. And lastly, derivative markets. This is where they provide structured risk transfer. So interest rates, swaps, credit derivatives, FX forwards, what else? Volatility products is another one. So when you put all of these together, you get the picture. Dealers sit in the middle of the entire financial ecosystem. They connect funding to pricing, and they connect money to markets. But here is the part that matters for investors. Dealers are like shock absorbers. When they shrink, markets become fragile. This happens when collateral haircuts rise, funding becomes more expensive, volatility increases, regulations may tighten, risk limits hit their capacity, or capital ratios get stretched. And when the dealer pulls back, there's 3 consequences. And that's number 1, liquidity. It dries up. So you'll see this by bid-ask spreads. They'll start to widen. And the depth of the market starts to disappear. So number 2, you'll see the willingness to bear risk shrink. So dealers can't absorb large trades, and that's kind of what you'll see. They don't want to take on any more inventory risk. That's kind of what that means, what we talked about right at the beginning. So number 3 is going to be prices are going to gap violently. This is where you'll see it. And this isn't because fundamentals have changed, but because there's no balance sheet to take the other side. This is why crises always look chaotic, not because people panicked per se, but because dealers had to step back. So in tying this in, I would say to the link between the Fed and financial markets, and I've mentioned him before, but a guy by the name of Perry Marilling, in my opinion, has the most clear idea, in my opinion, and the most clear facts about this one topic, and that is that dealers link the Fed to the financial markets, and it's one of his, in my opinion, biggest insights, and he talks about how the Fed does not directly support asset prices, but the Fed supports dealers. And why? Because the Fed lends against collateral, provides reserves, stabilizes funding markets, backstops treasury liquidity, and offers swap lines globally. Dealers then use that stability to keep markets functioning. And this is why QE works through dealer balance sheets. This is why repo supports treasury markets and stabilizing them. And this is why swap lines stabilize offshore dollar markets. There's programs like BTFP, which is I believe the bank. It's slipping my mind. Bank term funding program, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But basically what it is it helps stabilize those regional banks. So everything flows through the dealer function. So where this kind of comes into the connection with call it finance, when dealers hedge and fund their books, they influence interest rates, the term premia, credit spreads, volatility, and implied risk premiums, which means they influence the discount rates used in valuation models. So when we talk about the cost of capital, we're talking about something that ultimately reflects funding conditions and a dealer's risk capacity, which brings us back to the central theme of this podcast. Funding drives valuation. Liquidity drives pricing. And dealers, they connect the two. So if we try to connect them up with, say, the global system, dealers don't just operate domestically. They are the backbone of the euro-dollar system, the FX swap market, and really cross-border dollar funding chains. So when a corporation, as an example, and we'll pick a random country, Korea. So when a corporation in Korea needs dollars, a European dealer steps in. When a hedge fund in, say, London rolls a swap book, a U.S. dealer provides that hedge. This creates a global web of obligations, commitments, whatever, that must clear through the dealer's balance sheets. And in moments of stress, the entire world looks to the Fed, not because Fed wants global power, but because dealers need the Fed to maintain dollar funding liquidity worldwide. And I want to touch on one last thing that has to do with the fear aspect and why understanding dealers removes fear. So when you don't understand the system, markets can feel scary. Why are spreads widening? Why are stocks down on good earnings? Why did crypto crash when nothing happened? Why did bonds move violently on a quiet day? The answer is, I'll say this, the answer is rarely the headline. The answer is almost always dealer balance sheet stress, which translates to liquidity change, which translates to price changes. So understanding this, in my opinion, and I think for you listeners, I think removes the mystique, I guess. Markets stop feeling kind of chaotic and start feeling more mechanical. I've said that before, but and that's really what this podcast is all about. So I want to thank you for listening to episode 3 of the Global Ledger. And just to recap, we explored how dealers actually work, why they matter, how they manage risk, and how they connect funding to valuation. And I think the next episode is going to be interesting. And I believe that it's a very widespread statement. And we're going to dive into one of the most misunderstood ideas, and that is, does the Fed really print money? I will do my best to break down the plumbing, show you what the Fed actually does, and clear up some common myths that cause unnecessary fear. So if you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who wants a clearer perspective on money and markets. And again, I'm Justin, and thanks for being here.